Good afternoon and welcome. I am Reverend Cindy Grimes with Center for Spiritual Living Ocala, and I am so glad that you have chosen to spend some of your afternoon and a little bit of time with us today. For those of you who have never been with Center for Spiritual Living Ocala, let me tell you a little bit about who we are, what we're about. These are the values at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala, and we are just one of several hundred centers that are located all around the United States and the rest of the world. And these are the things that we value at our particular center, which is located in North Central Florida in Ocala. And the first thing that is on our list is spiritual growth and practice. That is the whole reason that we come together, is to learn and to grow spiritually, because that's the foundation of everything else. We value love. We think that that is where we come from, and that is the glue that holds everything together in our world. And we value appreciation. What you appreciate grows in your awareness and in your world. We value community. We also value freedom. In this month of July, we think a lot about that idea of freedom. We value creativity, as well as health and wholeness, generosity, and financial well-being. And our mission and vision, here we go. Our vision is that we are a model center for spiritual living, as evidenced by the transformational impact we have, not just on our own spiritual community, but on the larger Centers for Spiritual Living community and our own communities, wherever it is that we live, our world. And our mission is to empower individuals to awaken to the power and presence that lies within and all around them, so they may live their best lives. That means that I'm living my best life, and I'm offering you the tools and the understanding to live your best life. And so we are talking today about the idea of listening, especially listening to our so-called opponents or people we may not agree with, as an actual spiritual practice. And we are doing this. It's based on the work of a woman named Valarie Kaur in her book called See No Stranger. This is, I believe, the fourth or fifth tenet, which is, again, listening, as I said, to our opponents. So let me put up a little, here we go. This is what Valarie says about listening. Listening is an act of wonder, the refusal to demonize our opponents, and a labor of love. We listen not for agreement, but for understanding, so that we may build connections. Indeed, indeed. So I have two guests that are going to be joining me today in this conversation, and I'm going to bring one of them in for a moment, right quickly. Hi, Reverend Tom Pittman.
Hey
How are you
there.
doing?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you.
Terrific. You know what I didn't do before we started our chat this morning was to ask you if you wouldn't mind doing our invocation, if you want to pray us in.
I'll be happy to do that.
Fabulous. Thank you, Tom. So I'm going to take myself out of the stream and let you pray us in. Thank you.
Okay. I invite you now, if you would, to close your outer eyes and turn within. As we know the truth that there is only one source of all that is, one first cause of all creation, and I know that source, that first cause is God, the divine presence and spirit of the universe. And I know that God is all there is, for nothing exists that is not God or created by or from the very substance of the divine. And I know that I am, and each one of us are created from the very substance of the divine, and that substance is unconditional love. And it is love who we are at the very core, at the very essence of our being. And since we're all created from this very same substance of love, then we're all one, not only with spirit, we're one with each other. We're one with all creation. And as I look around me, I see nothing but love. And so I know this experience, I know this truth, I know that we are here for a divine purpose today. And I speak a word of blessing on each person participating in this gathering. I speak a word of blessing on Reverend Cindy as the facilitator, on Corinne Dean, who you will meet very soon, on me, on Richard, and every other person who in any way worked to make this time together such an enjoyable and inspiring time. And I'm enthusiastic about our time together because we love being together. We love enjoying Ocala Centers for Spiritual Living, or CSL Ocala, actually. And so I know this is true. I anchor this in that truth and in love, and ask you to join with me in anchoring it by saying together, and so it is.
And so it is. Thank you so much, Tom. I love how you can toss something out to a minister like that and they just take it and run with it.
I think we're trained that way.
Yes, we are trained that way. It's wonderful. Thank you for that wonderful invocation. I'm really excited for our conversation today, too. And let me bring in Corinne Dean. Hey, Corinne.
Hello, Reverend Tom, Reverend
Hello again.
Cindy. Hello. That was beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So here are the connections for folks who don't know everybody here today. Reverend Tom and I are peers. We were in the ministerial program together. And what can I tell you about Tom? Tom represents for me like the man's man. and in our denomination, in our movement, you're kind of an anomaly, especially coming from the background that you're in, you know. And so I love you dearly. You are retired military as well as an attorney, and as I said, one of those folks that's just a man's man. And so that's who you are for me, Tom, and all that embodies, you know, father, brother, husband, just, you know, all around good guy.
Well, thank you.
So thank you for coming. And then Corinne and I work together. We are co-founders of Circle Up Center for Practical Peace Building. And so we are both engaged in this idea of engaging our community in peace literacy and what it means to really be at peace with ourselves and with one another, you know, as it radiates out in our circles of influence, family and friends and neighbors and so on. And Corinne is married to a career military man. So we've got another angle on that conversation there. And so thank you. And I'm looking also at who's online with us today. We've got Reverend Marie Kirkland, who is also retired military. with us online, and
Oh, is she now?
yes, she is. Yes, she is.
Yeah. Oh,
Got all
yes.
kinds of folks joining us today. So welcome, and thank you both for being here. Yeah. So we are having a conversation. We're continuing this conversation on the idea of listening as spiritual practice, and you two folks, because we are friends, and we know each other in several different aspects of life. I know you both to be extraordinary listeners, and by that I mean people who have this capacity to create safe for folks to speak, and to move through their dramas and traumas and whatever, and come out, find their whole-ness. And so I thank you both for being that person at one time or another in my experience. And so I want to talk about that this morning or this afternoon, about how you all came to be these amazing people and great listeners, and what listening has been in your life, both in being listened to and in providing that space for others. So yeah, so that's our the basis of our conversation today.
It's a good basis, because I know I have found in the peace building work, especially that we do, Cindy, that so much of it is listening, being a good listener.
Yeah.
It's because it's part of that healing that you were just mentioning.
Yes.
Heals ourselves, heals others. So yeah, it's definitely a good foundation to have good listening skills. And I know I didn't always have them. I'm still working on them.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. So why don't we start? We'll go ahead with a. I just have a few questions, and then if you guys have anything that you all want to ask, by all means. But I thought the first thing to just share about how having somebody listening to you when you were going through something helped to facilitate a healing for you. Anybody want to take that one on?
I'll go ahead and jump in first, then if you want. Or, with a career in the military and a career practicing law overlapping that, quite often I listened for the purpose of either getting information that was going to be necessary for whatever I needed to do to accomplish something, or to fix something, or to gain an advantage if I happened to be in court or something like that. I wasn't listening to hear the person. And it wasn't until, and I appreciate your comment about being a man's man, but those two professions taught me a great deal about how much I not only subdued, covered up, absolutely denied that I had feelings and emotions. You just kept them in check because they were a weakness for somebody to exploit. And it wasn't until my life became topsy-turvy and well, it will soon be 20 years ago, I entered a recovery program for people who did not express emotions. And one of the key facets of recovery was listening to people. Now, of course, they listened to me. That helped me get on the road. But what then I had to learn to do was to listen differently. And I found, or what I learned there, is I couldn't help somebody else, really help them, without hearing them and hearing them deeply. And the only way I could help them, it turned out, was to listen to them. So it was a new, I don't want to call it a new technique, I'd call it a new way of living for me, to learn to listen more fully, and listen without any intent to respond, listen to hear the feelings that someone else was expressing. And it taught somebody teaching me to do that.
Wow. And when did you have your light bulb moment? Like
it was back in October of 2001. So this October it'll be 20 years.
Wow. Awesome. And you have, for folks that don't know you, you've been married for how many years?
God, most of my life.
Yeah.
Well, more than I've not been.
Right,
I could
right.
have, yeah.
And five
And
daughters.
5 daughters.
Yeah.
So I did lots of listening. Now, with 5 daughters, there was plenty of talking going on all the time. I just wasn't listening for the purposes of really hearing. I was listening to do the parental things or to help fix a problem or something like that. There wasn't that time, as adults we can say, oh, let's talk and we'll have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and just share. There wasn't that time, and particularly not with 5 of them, in addition to my wife, who ended up being the odd person out quite often and never got heard.
Yeah.
There just wasn't all that sense of enough to go around to actually hear someone when they just needed to vent or just needed to have somebody care. So the caring piece was what was missing in the listening for me. And that's what I had to learn.
Yeah. Wow. That's so deep, Tom. I did, before we go to Corinne, because I want you to answer this question too, Corinne. But I want to know, Tom, how is your experience of life different today than it was 20 years ago? Like, that time capsule. If you could go back,
Yeah.
this is who Tom was. This is who Tom is today.
Actually, the two things that I really credit so much with changing my life is, one was going into recovery, and then I was there from 2001 until the summer of 2009, and at the time I attended the Episcopal Church, and I was talking to a friend of mine who's a counselor, and I just said, I am just simply not being spiritually fed. And she said, you need to look for a place that's more spiritual. And that's when I came to Science of Mind, and it was just what I found, and this was the subject of my talk this morning at Triangle Center, is that recovery and Science of Mind are just so compatible. They're so interrelated. And what I found is that Science of Mind picked up the things that recovery couldn't teach me. And then for me, it was like an explosion. And it's been evolving and changing and growing ever since. So my first epiphany was in 2001, and then in 2009, I was absolutely blown away with Science of Mind. And now I know I'm home.
Wow. Beautiful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Corinne, you're up.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Sadly, I missed the last about 30 seconds of what you said because everything went out on me, but I caught the end where you said Science of Mind blew your mind. So that sounded like a great story. I'm sorry I missed it. Yeah, I have to be honest. We're talking about listening, right? And I wasn't able to listen because for some reason my AirPods went out and I couldn't hear anything. So back to the topic at hand. For listening, the question is that moment where I discovered the importance of listening, like when someone was listening to me, would probably, I can't pinpoint it the way Tom did. That's amazing you had that exact moment. But over time, I would notice people that truly listened to what I was saying, not just with their body movements, but they were truly hearing what I was saying, was such a validation for me that what I have to say is important. And it was such a beautiful thing to feel for myself that I did realize I need to give that gift to others as well. So when I'm listening, you validate people when you truly hear what they're saying. And that is just something I've learned over time. And it's really, like I mentioned earlier, with the peace building work is so important, but also I interview people that come in. I work at a local charity, and I interview people that come in for emergency assistance. And they have their immediate needs. They need clothing or food or help with their electric bill or something of that nature. But a lot of times they need someone to just listen, to them and not, just check a box and say, okay, here you go. I have seen some powerful, or I've experienced some powerful moments by just the sheer act of listening.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very powerful.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess for me, I think I had been a social worker already when I found the Center for Spiritual Living. But like Tom, this was the place that blew my mind wide open. And I was really blessed to have, a great senior minister that for the first time in my life, I really felt safe enough that I could sit in her office and just, I basically did all of my, trauma stuff that I'd carried for years and years. And, she just she let it be there, she let me express it. And I never felt judged. And, there was a point where I felt like, wow, I made it through some stuff, and here I am on the other side of it. And she really helped facilitate that. So it was like having somebody listen for me that way made me want to do the same for, for other people, because I could feel the change, and I see it now, even, as a minister, the comfort, I guess, that comes over somebody, or I guess it is comfort, when you can just release whatever that thing is and let it go and feel like, I'm still
It
here.
is.
Okay.
I've seen that as well. It's almost a physical thing. You see that release that you called it. I love that, how you describe it that way, Cindy. But the same thing, and you let people, and a lot of times if someone's coming to you, I imagine for both of you as ministers, people will come to you for advice. And have you found, just by listening and letting them talk through it, they already have the answer? And because for me, what I have found, if I just listen, deeply listen, without the little chatter going on in my head that, oh, I have to say this, I need to respond, I need to do that, letting all of that go, it creates a very spiritual environment. And that spiritual flow, it comes into the person who's also speaking, and you see it, as they're speaking, they find that answer within themselves. And that's something I have experienced, and it's what I hold to. I try to do it. I am not always successful, but when that moment happens, it is a beautiful moment.
Yeah. Oh, so beautifully said, Corinne.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you.
So now, let's flip it now. How did a time of your listening to somebody else actually facilitate healing for you and or that person? And I think maybe I'll jump in. I think I'll just start.
Go ahead.
For where I'm going with this, because what has happened for me in listening to other people is that my world grows.
Yeah.
So that's a way that, yes, I have helped this person because they've been able to release whatever that is. But at the same time, by listening and being in somebody else's experience, my experience grows, and I learn and evolve from being a part of somebody else's walk for even just that little bit, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yes. And in fact, what I have found too is by someone sharing with me, and I quietly listen. And again, I say quiet because the inner mind with me sometimes is just like this, and I need it to be like this. Okay. So I try to do that when I'm listening. And if I can remain silent, and again, that you open the place for spirit to come through by hearing their journey, it I get excited because I think, oh, I'm not alone, or I can really relate to what you're saying. And, oh, I've had that experience, or it expands my world as well, that it expands my understanding, and it helps my growth, and it helps validate me too, because sometimes what someone else is going through is something that I'm going through and didn't even realize it until they verbalize an issue. I just had someone do this last night. She was telling me about an experience she was having, and how she started to feel this, discomfort by sharing about herself. Not to get into the details, but it wasn't until she verbalized it that I thought, oh, I do the same thing. I didn't even realize I was doing that. So here it was. She was helping me by telling me her issue. So it really is a two-way street. It's a wonderful experience for sure.
Thanks, Corinne.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, it's very, very much so. And that's one of the beautiful things, you learn early on in recovery when you meet it, particularly in small groups, is you'll get somebody new come in and they'll go, oh, well, I'm reluctant to share. And one of the things we say to them is, listen, you need to understand, everybody here has had the same experiences. So no matter what you bring up, somebody else in this room has experienced the same thing. You're not going to tell us anything new. And after 20 years, I can tell you there's only one time I can ever remember a person brought up something that I had never heard before. So one time in 20 years is not very much. But what I found is this idea of listening with that is, as you're listening to them, you sense that feeling that they're, and that experience they're having, and it's not a relive it as much as it is you remember it, and you look at it through different eyes, from a different perspective of what can I learn from this. And I found once I got into science of mind and became a practitioner, or even during my practitioner training, that was part of the training, was to listen and realize that you could identify with another person's experience. And so I became very much more attuned to the idea of entering any kind of a communication with the attitude of, what can I learn from this so that I'm growing as well as them. And it has helped me, and it has helped make me a better listener. So quite often, and I have a regular little couple of different little groups where I'll talk to different ministers at different times. And sometimes one of us will be having a problem and the other one is there for us. But quite often, even in that conversation where one of us brings an issue up, just in communication, we're both growing, we're both learning from it. And sometimes it's just general communication, and we're helping each other out with this, that, or the other thing, and we still have that same feeling of how blessed we were to have that time together, and it was because we were listening to one another with our hearts.
That's beautiful. And I know too, listening, Tom, how you said, I love how you put that you're growing as a person too. And one thing that it's taught me as well is this idea of this deep listening, is to learn patience as well. Because sometimes when someone is sharing, sometimes it takes them a little while to get to what's really on their heart. And I just read something recently, and it was a little bit of an epiphany for me, because I do find myself thinking, oh, okay, let's get to the point. That little touch of impatience, that hits us when someone, because you could tell they're taking a long walk around the block just to get across the street. And what I read that was so fascinating was this idea of the heart. We have all these layers when we try to protect ourselves, especially in this charity I mentioned. When these people do come in for assistance, they've had a lot of they've had a lot of bad times, a lot of bad experiences. And, you know, in our protection, to protect ourselves, we build these layers around our heart. And sometimes as they're talking, they have to get through each of those layers before they actually get to their heart and what's in their heart. And that is, I've learned too, if I can be patient and just allow people to get through the layers. And sometimes those outer layers are very negative, and it's, with you listen without judgment and let them get through that, they really reach the core in their heart of what they really want to say, what their message really is. So the patience really is definitely something to learn to be a good listener.
Wow. I love that, Corinne. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think about the flip side of that, and how violence comes from people not feeling like they've been listened to.
Yes.
Right? Like
Yes.
they've been heard. So you haven't, I'm speaking and you haven't heard me. So now I'm going to speak louder and you still haven't heard me. I'm going to speak louder again and you still haven't heard me. And now I'm going to make you hear me. Right? With, I'm going to
Yes.
get your attention. So,
Mhm.
there's like the both extremes of that. Right? And what a gift it is to provide that space for people to be heard so they don't have to escalate.
It's
Like
true.
that.
It's not easy too. It's especially if they are escalating. That is tough. But you're right, Cindy. A lot of that escalation is because they're not being heard,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Absolutely.
they blow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, I think it's important to know for ourselves what that looks like personally, like what is your point? Like that point of explosion, like, I can't get to this place or I'm going to go over the things that I shouldn't, or, whatever, you have that explosive moment, to have that self-awareness of I need to take myself back for a minute or find somebody that I can speak to and vent, let the steam come off, so it doesn't explode and hurt somebody. Right. And when you know that place for yourself, it's easier to know that for other people too. You start to see as people are moving and they're escalating, and you don't want to add to that. When you're conscious, you don't want to add to that. Let me say that, right? Sometimes we're not conscious, right? Anybody ever been there?
Yes.
I have been there on occasion. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's another thing too, when someone is venting or telling their story, by listening doesn't mean you agree with them. They just need to vent. They need to get it out. I had that one time with a fellow volunteer. It was during the campaign season, so you can imagine everyone's going around, about to blow their lids, and she was talking, and at first the conversation started, we're talking about, we're opponents in the political field, and I was kind of arguing with her a little bit, and then something came over me and I thought, oh, I just need to listen, even though everything she was saying I disagreed with. So I let her vent, and you could, she just had to get it out. And then I just touched her shoulder and said, it's going to be okay. And it changed the whole dynamic of the conversation. Then we were able to have a nice conversation. She had to get that out first. She had to vent. And every time I would make a comment that disagreed with her, you could see it. So once I stopped doing that and just stood back and let her vent, changed the whole thing.
Love it.
Yeah.
Let me see. The quote that Valarie said, I think I have it here. Let me put it up. No, maybe not. I'll just read it. When we listen to understand, we release ourselves from the pressure to defend our position or to persuade our opponents. This doesn't mean that we relinquish our values or legitimize theirs, But when the focus instead is on understanding, it carries inside it the possibility of transformation.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that's what you did, Corinne.
That's what, that's it. That's a great quote, because I let go of the argument. The argument wasn't even the point when you got down to it. She was just so upset. And when I did touch her shoulder, I asked her a question. I just said, "Do you trust God?" And that was the page where we were on the same page. And she just, yes. She goes, "Yes, I do." I said, "It'll be okay then," and so, yeah, I didn't need to defend my position. That wasn't even the point. So that is a beautiful quote. That's a beautiful quote. The transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and by the way, when I left later that day, she was on the phone because she was the receptionist where I was working. And I walked out and I waved to her, and she put the phone down, and she looked at me and she said, "Thank you for being kind." I was like, okay, she made my day. Then my day was wonderful after that. That was a beautiful moment. Then she went back to talking on the phone. So it makes a difference.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that story.
You're welcome.
Beautiful.
Well, I'll confess that the attorney in me heard that quote, and I got here where it says it carries inside the possibility of transformation. My thought was, oh yeah, in whom? You or them?
It's a good question.
But it can be both.
Both.
It can be both, just like the Corinne's story brought out.
Yeah, it was both.
And
Definitely
sometimes
both.
Sometimes both of you need the transformation.
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely. We are this is one of the things we teach, right? That we are mirrors of one another.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? That life is showing us who we are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Ooh.
That's it. We're just that's one of the magical things. Did I lose you?
I felt like I lost you for a second.
Okay. I was gonna say to me, I call it the circle magic, is when you're sitting in a group of people, and like we've been saying, right, the question gets tossed out and somebody answers, and their answer is something that could have come out of your mouth. And your whole everything is different, right? Like, when I would be in these circles with men in prison, people, some of them were lifers, they had committed murders and all kinds of things. And here I am sitting, we're all sitting in this group together and seeing one another as fellow human beings, and there but for the grace of God go I. And it's amazing. It's an amazing experience. That's what deep listening can do.
It does. And again, it just proves that oneness of who we are. We are all brothers and sisters in spirit. We really, really are.
Yes.
Regardless of our circumstances. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it also reveals to us that we have a tremendous capacity to be cruel to ourselves and to others. And if you want to see where people can be absolutely just devastating to themselves, listen to them in their self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can listen to your own self-talk too. But how many times do you hear somebody say, "Oh, I'm just so dumb," or I'm just so stupid," or I can't do anything right, or words to that effect, or talk harshly about some mistake they made. I'm just so totally incompetent in doing this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
One of my favorites is I hear people say, "Oh, I'm just not technically astute," or however where they wish to word it. I'm just so backwards about this, that, or the other. And I'm like, you're human.
Yeah.
Why do you? Okay, so you haven't had the opportunity to learn it. Are you incapable of learning? No, obviously not. Yeah, it's who we are. And we make so many mistakes, and it's just part of life. And yet we are so hard on ourselves. And then when we see someone else make a mistake, we're real easy and quick to turn on them just as quickly.
Mm.
And
that's true.
And it's not listening. It's not listening, it becomes then judging.
Mm.
But just think if we turn that little bit of energy
Mhm.
to just hearing and accepting, feeling somebody speak from wherever they are in their world at that moment, that little act of kindness, like Corinne was talking about, that little act of kindness, what a difference that can make in their life and make a difference in your life as well. And that,
Mm.
how
Mhm.
easy, how it doesn't take any more energy to listen than it does to judge or
Mm.
criticize.
Ooh. Oh, I like that.
I think we need to write that one up.
I know. Yeah, let me
It just
write
came
that
out.
down, Tom. That's
Yeah.
really good. I like me to write that down.
Oh,
Oh,
well, beautiful people, it is about time for us to wrap it up. And
We
you are
just
not.
got started.
I
I
know it
know. We're just getting going.
goes so fast, doesn't it? Just goes so
Yes.
fast. So we'll just close out. Tom, this you're not going to be with us next week. So, what do you think is required of the individual who says they're going to take on listening as an act of revolutionary love?
Hmm. What is required? I'd say the first thing that's required is you make the decision that every choice you make is going to come from your heart space, that place of love and kindness and gentleness, that place of patience and understanding, of courtesy, consideration, care, compassion, all that thing that involves being kind to a small child that scrapes their knee, being kind to your elderly grandparent who just wants the pleasure of your presence. If we make up our mind and say, I'm going to be kind, I think that's the starting point.
Mm.
Mm, thank you. That was beautiful. Corinne,
That, that
closing.
was. Well, let's see, I will build on what Tom said. So start by being kind. And I think part of that is too to be kind to yourself, kind of like you were saying, Tom. You know, if you have bad self-talk, it's hard to be kind to others. So, but to listen, to go out with the idea of kindness and compassion, to have that be your motivation in the day. And then, as well as one thing that's really important for listening as revolutionary love, is to learn to quiet the mind so you can truly, truly listen to someone and again allow spirit to work through you,
Mm,
because sometimes it does take an act of the divine.
Yes.
So it's really important. I have found. I have found that.
so I will add then the idea that change is possible,
Yes.
right? Right? That
Mm.
love is here, that compassion is here, and that change and transformation is possible. So,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes. So, thank you, my dear friends. I'm so grateful you chose to spend the afternoon with us this today. And to invite you, we'll be having a conversation after this on Zoom. If either or both of you would like to join us, that would be wonderful. And just thank you again for an inspiring and enlightening conversation. I love to have different perspectives on these topics, and you brought it today, so thank you.
Thank you. This was beautiful. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Tom.
Enjoyed it very much. Do you have the Zoom link?
Yes, let's see. I think Richard will put it in the chat for us.
Oh,
And,
excellent. Thank you. Thank you,
all right.
Richard.
Yes, thank you. All right, see you guys. See you in Zoom.
All right.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
I just want to breathe in the moment of that love and connection. And let's see. And thank you to everyone who's been watching. I see Lita on here and Reverend Mary Ellen, Natasha, Reverend Rodney, do join us in Zoom so we can continue this conversation on the healing capacity of deep listening and just how much that is needed in our world today, in our families, in our neighborhoods. It's just people need to feel connected. And, you know, if you were on this call, you can be that person, you know, you can be that listening ear that helps someone to move through their own trauma and drama and know that it can help you move to your next level as well. And so it is time for us to, let's see, we're going to go through our blessing. And where is it? Here we go. Yes. Sharing our gifts and tithes. So this is our affirmation. And I just want to encourage you all. I don't know who's watching today or where you're from, but the idea that, you know, that money is like water, right? It has a flow to it, and it needs to flow. It needs to be, it needs to be in motion. When things don't move that are meant to be in motion, when water doesn't move, it becomes stagnant. When your emotions don't move and flow as they need to, they become stagnant. And when things are stagnant, they're nasty and cause disease and discomfort and all kinds of things. So we let it flow. We let it flow. And so if you're uptight about money and concerned about whether you have enough, get it in the flow, put it in the flow. And whether you're giving it to the Center for Spiritual Living, which I hope you will, or you're giving it someplace else, make sure that you keep that flow going so that you can continue to have that prosperity in your own life. And if you would like to give to the Center for Spiritual Living, we have a couple of ways that you can do it. You can go to our website at cslocala.org/donate, or text to tithe to the number that is going across the screen at the bottom. And how that works is if you have a smartphone, cell phone, you can text to the number going across the screen and put in the amount that you would like to give to CSL Ocala, and it'll go from your account to ours. It's super easy, super easy. Here it comes, 352-320-5110. And so here is the affirmation that I invite you to take into your heart and make your own. It is the nature of life to give of itself, as it is the tree's nature to bear fruit and the flower's nature to bloom. It is my nature to share the gifts of my time, talent, and treasure. I participate in the divine flow of life, giving generously and receiving abundantly. I am blessed and I am a blessing. I am so very grateful. And so that is sharing our gifts and tithes. And let's see, I think I have a couple of announcements for you. Let's see, pop them up here. Big Sky Retreat is coming up September 4th through the 9th. The theme is illumination. We've got some just phenomenal featured speakers, including Reverend David Alt and our music team. And I will be speaking at Big Sky this year. So I'm just very excited to be doing that. It is the result of visioning and my own first experience at the retreat back in 2015 when I looked at the stage and said, I want to be a presenter. And now I have something that's worth sharing. So I will be there, and I hope that some of you will join us. And what else do we have here? I want to tell you about our next Sunday gathering that is going to be with all of us. And I thought it was here somewhere, our Super Second Sunday. Oh, I don't see it. Anyway, our next in-person gathering will be the second Sunday of the month, which is August, I believe it's 11th. Let me double check that. It is not. It is August 8th. Never mind what I just said. Our next Sunday gathering in person in Ocala will be at the Showcase Event Center on August 8th. And what else is there? I think that's it. Although I do want to say a really special thank you to New Thought Media Network for bringing us on board and helping to produce our broadcast. We are very, very grateful for that collaboration, and grateful to all of you who joined us today. I hope that you got some nugget that you can use in your life as you go into the world and deal with what is yours to deal with. So we'll close out with a prayer here. And this is the prayer for protection that comes from James Gillett Freeman. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And I just affirm and pray and know that all is well in your world. And anything that may be showing up as an obstacle or a problem or some kind of drama, that it's, you own it and it's yours to get through, and you will come out on the other side of it better, stronger, more amazing. And I thank you for being with us this afternoon, and hope to see some of you on Zoom. Take care.